If you're watching this, you most likely either have a problem or you're looking for an opportunity. The problem might be that you don't have enough solid leaders to help serve to fulfill the potential of your church. Whereas the opportunity is the potential kingdom impact that could be realized if you had more amazing men and women to lead in your church. Either way, well done taking time to dig into this critical component of our local churches. We understand that you're busy, so we want this to be a great use of your time. Our goal is for it to be extremely clear, practical, and helpful. So we'll be giving you free resources throughout this series and tools to help you not only hear good ideas, but also have the handles you need to put them into action immediately. Our hope is to help you develop great leaders, the type leaders that have kingdom impact, that love Jesus and love others differently. This is what we hope for in our churches and what our communities desperately need. My name's Robby Angle, and I serve as the president and CEO of Trueface. Our mission at Trueface is to serve the church by providing grace-based relational discipleship resources. Prior to serving at Trueface, I spent 8 years at North Point Community Church in Georgia tackling this problem of not having enough strong volunteer leaders in our adult ministry. I made a lot of mistakes as I tried to figure out how in the world to develop healthy, passionate, and committed leaders in our church. But over time, through an amazing team of wise individuals and a lot of trial and error, a few principles started to become clear. And then things started to really roll, picking up speed. And we ended up having a new problem. We had too many volunteer small group leaders and not enough people to fill their groups. And they were some of the healthiest leaders in our church after going through a 9-month development initiative. It was amazing. We were hearing stories of life change. We heard from spouses about the change they were seeing in their husband or their wife. We started to feel the culture of the church shift from the ground up. We started sharing what we learned with other churches and saw the same thing happen. Through that time, there were some specific things we learned to do and some specific things we learned not to do. And in this series, I want to share with you what I learned and how to do it yourself. If you're watching this, you most likely understand that the overall health of a church is connected to its volunteers. Healthy volunteers, healthy church. Churches function because of our volunteers. Kids care volunteers, small group hosts, and leaders, greeters, cleanup crew, men and women pulling together to serve people inside and outside of the church is how we participate, how we are the body of Christ. So, thriving volunteers, thriving church. Here's where it gets tricky though. We need men and women stepping up, taking responsibility and helping to spearhead the mission, but solving the quantity of leaders alone isn't enough. It's the quality of the leaders, the maturity, the health, the intentionality of the leaders who change the culture of the church, who increase the impact on the community, and who love others inside and outside the church differently. The impact of your church will be correlated to the quantity and the quality of the volunteer leaders. We're in the business of transformation in our churches, helping people see God and themselves differently. And this spiritual formation, becoming more like Christ, always spills over. And transformation is always evidenced in how we love those around us differently. This is the discipleship that Jesus both modeled and told us about. Imagine the impact on our congregations and our communities if we had more fully alive and fired up men and women to serve and to love and to partner with us to fulfill the hope of our churches. With those leaders, men and women who are mature, others focused, and ready to serve others, that's where the multiplication really starts to happen. Now, some of you might be thinking, are we talking about getting more and better volunteer leaders, or are we talking about discipleship and spiritual formation? Yes, both. You and I know that the health of the leader is contingent on his or her spiritual maturity. Therefore, what we learned was that this leader development program could equally be called a disciple development program, or whatever other term you wanted to use. Because in order to get quality leaders, we need leaders who have matured as disciples of Christ. I'll assume that you know this because you're watching this series, but with all the other pressures of pastoral ministry, the long, arduous task of developing a pipeline for quality leaders can sometimes fall by the wayside. It's too easy not to focus on it with the tyranny of the urgent. And it's hard to know where to start or what to focus on. This is difficult work. So here's what most of us do. We try different approaches, but they seem to be putting a short-term fix over a long-term problem, leaving us always needing more volunteers. Then, because we don't have enough volunteers, we end up settling for anybody with a heartbeat who we can coerce with a free meal to serve and invest in others. Feel familiar? We know that the health of any leader has a massive impact on the culture and outcomes of the team or the environment they lead. But when it comes to our ministry environments, we can sometimes feel boxed into a corner. We feel like we have to settle with whoever we have and then lower our expectations of the impact of those environments. But listen, it doesn't have to be that way. And I'll cut to the chase. The best way to develop wise, healthy, passionate volunteer leaders in your church is through smaller, life-changing community for people to connect relationally and grow spiritually. A leader development pipeline for men and women to have a model of an exceptional leader and an experience of authentic community. Not through passionate pleas from the pulpit, not free meal offers or guilt trips, not new 90-minute leader trainings, not even the book I wrote for small group leaders. I want to talk about what I saw really change things. About 10 years ago, I had the opportunity to oversee the men's ministry at North Point Community Church. Andy Stanley, my boss and the founder of North Point, often said that small groups were the foundation of the health of the church. In his book, Deep and Wide, Sunday services were meant to have wide reach, but small groups were to have a depth of impact. Small groups were supposed to be where people could be more fully known and fully loved, not on a Sunday morning. I was working prior to this as a licensed professional counselor with a passion for helping people experience authentic relationships. So when I heard about the opportunity to help foster environments where this could happen in a mega church, I was pretty excited. But this was a new role. They decided to peel off the 50 or so men's groups, place them under my care, and allow me to experiment, to try some stuff. And that's my favorite place to be. So I jumped in with 2 feet and started pulling together the smartest men I could find in the church to be an advisory team. For 3 months, we wrestled with how to use a small group ministry to shape the culture of the men in our church. Our hope was to see a community of men who were fully alive, which meant rooted in Jesus, fully known by a few, and engaged in their unique calling. And by the way, this is exactly what I want for my daughters as well. See, we believed and still do that the environment that would be most conducive for being rooted, known, and engaged is a small group. A group that meets together with intentionality and consistency to connect relationally and grow spiritually. And since we had about 50 groups, we asked, is this actually happening? Or is it not happening? How do we know? And how do we help move the needle? Now, lots of variables make up a small group. What you study, how the time is used, frequency, group cohesion, others. However, the greatest factor in any small group being boring or transformational is the small group leader. I would say this is about 65% of the equation, which is a lot. Realizing this, our advisory team said, okay, if an exceptional leader is the most important part of the discipleship happening in our church, we've got a problem. We have a bunch of mediocre leaders leading a bunch of mediocre groups, and then we hope they multiply and divide, and new leaders come from those groups to perpetuate in mediocre groups. Doesn't seem like a great plan. So we dove in deep. We wrestled and we did a few things. First, we had to define what a healthy leader looked like, and we'll talk about that in the next video. Second, we chose to spend more time with fewer people for greater kingdom impact, to change the culture of the church, and we're gonna get to that too. And then third, we executed a replicable group framework for relational grace-based discipleship to develop leaders and unlock the potential of the ministry we were stewarding. And yes, we're gonna get to that as well. God has designed us to grow through relationships. We see that from Genesis to Revelation. But relationships that lead to spiritual growth are hard for us to come by. They take time, commitment, and investment. And you can't do it all, but you can equip some of your best leaders to develop future leaders. You can equip these leaders to partner with you, changing the health, the maturity, and the culture of your church from the ground up. We knew that if we could develop a relational framework that fostered spiritual transformation and maturity, we would begin to see healthy, wise, passionate leaders spilling out of these groups into the environments throughout our church. These individuals would then become the leaders we needed for our ministries with kids, students, service, home groups, small groups, and others. We'd begin to see the church multiply. And that's exactly what happened.